people got mad at me when I said LeBron James. A legit argument can be made that he's a top 3 scorer of all time. A lot of people got frustrated at me, got mad at me on Twitter when I said that. But a lot of people don't understand the difference between just scoring an all-around scorer and a pure scorer. So that's why they got mad at me. Like from a skill and ability standpoint, if you combine the skill ability with the knack for just scoring the basketball, of course LeBron James wouldn't be a top 3 scorer of all time. You got guys that just from a skill and ability and pureness standpoint, and when you combine like the scoring of all multiple levels, that will be better than LeBron James. But LeBron James is the only player in the history game that I know that averaged 27 points for 10 straight years, has never averaged below 25 points for his entire career, and averaged a career of 27 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, shooting 50% from the field, and guys said he's not a scorer. Just because that's not his best attribute. Now, a pure scorer is guys that we could talk about like Kobe Bryant, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, guys that the way they get their points, Carmelo Anthony, the way they get their points on the basketball court, they can score it in a different variety of ways. They can score and get you 45 to 50, 55, sometimes even 60 points just on the pureness of mainly jump shots and being mainly a jump shooter. They can score with different counter moves, skill set ability, and the way their overall pureness and smoothness on the basketball court, it just looks better than, let's say, a LeBron James. But let's not confuse the fact that LeBron James can still score with the best of those guys. It may not be as pure, but just because it's not as pure does not mean that LeBron James is not just as great of a scorer as those guys. Just because LeBron James is simple, just because LeBron James doesn't have the type of handle that some of those guys may have, or the pureness or the smoothness that some of those guys may have, that doesn't mean that you're going to probably pick some of those scorers over LeBron James. A legitimate argument can be made that, like I said, LeBron James is a top 3 scorer of all time. It just depends on what you prefer. Me personally, I prefer a guy with a pure ability that I know that is wired differently, wired to score, wired to generate points, wired to go out and be aggressive on the scoring part of the basketball side of things. I would want that guy. But you also got guys that will prefer LeBron James because clutchness, check. Playoff performances, check. Regular season performances, check. The reason why LeBron James may retire as the number 1 leading scorer of all time in the history of the NBA after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, if he beats Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record. So the fact of the matter is that LeBron James, I put it like this, a lot of people don't understand it because maybe they confuse, having an all-around game with just scoring the basketball. And when we look at like Kobe Bryant, we look at Kevin Durant, when we look at Michael Jordan, they say, oh, those guys are great scorers. Great scorer means best player. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, Kobe Bryant, great scorer. He was the best player in the NBA for a time. Michael Jordan, great scorer. He was the best player in the NBA. LeBron James, great scorer. He was the best player in the NBA. So that's not the best of the best are normally the guys that can score the ball, and because that's the number 1 game. That's the main most important thing in basketball is to score the ball. Can you score the ball? And LeBron James does it as well as anybody ever in the history of the game. So that's why I say the legit argument can be made that if you're just looking at regular season playoff performances, the ability to score at every zone of the basketball court, then LeBron James can be considered a top 3 scorer of all time. LeBron James has played in 3 eras. He's played in the physical half-court era where games were 80 points, 85 points. He's played in the tight defensive era. He's played in the small ball era, which he kind of created and helped pioneer with the Miami Heat. He's played in the analytical era when he was, his threes and layups right now. And then it seems like the NBA is about to shift back into the big man era with bigs. And that's why I always felt that the Los Angeles Lakers were going to win the championship, because unless they faced the Milwaukee Bucks or the Philadelphia Sixers, because those are the only 2 teams in the league that had the type of size that can match the Los Angeles Lakers' physical aggressiveness in the playoffs. But that didn't happen, of course. So people don't understand the difference between a pure scorer and just an all-around scorer. And LeBron James is an all-around scorer. Yes, his handle may not be like a James Harden, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry. He may not be as smooth as a Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant from a scoring standpoint or ability. But when we're talking about efficiency, when we're talking about being able to score at a variety of ways, when we're talking about putting the ball in the hoop, LeBron James can be considered one of the greatest. He is one of the greatest scorers of all time. If you're just looking at that standpoint, efficiency, you need a bucket. You need somebody that can score. It doesn't get much better than LeBron James. Now, for a pure ability, if you're looking for somebody that can hit you a difficult shot, create off the dribble, and get you get you a bucket or get fouled or, hit a tough fadeaway, a difficult shot, or has that scoring mentality first, from a pure standpoint, then you're not going to pick LeBron James over a Kevin Durant, maybe not even a James Harden. But if you combine the two, LeBron James are going to fall. But if you just look for like the simplest of scoring the basketball in a variety of ways, better to score in the half court, fast break transition, be able to score athletically, better to score shooting the ball, better to score getting layups, be able to score, going to the free throw line, even though that's not his best attribute, then LeBron James can be considered a top 3 scorer of all time. So I don't understand why people have really had a problem with that statement. Now, I would say that if I really break it down, LeBron James has a legit argument to be after Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. But if I really break things down, and like I like to do, the pureness, of course, the pureness and skill ability does matter, and the eye test does matter. The eye test is going to be better. Pure score is better than LeBron James, and then when you combine the two, then of course he will fall a little bit. But a lot of people don't understand the difference between pure score and just all-around scoring ability and all-around game. So, of course, from an all-around game standpoint, LeBron James is one of the best scorers to ever play the game of basketball and can be considered after Kobe, after Michael Jordan, from an all-around standpoint of scoring the ball, being able to do it in a variety of ways. It doesn't get much better than LeBron James.